Welcome back to Miracle Trigger. Today the topic of the video is going to be the Bushiroad Springfest 2019. So as a few of you might know, if you're in the Discord, which link will be in the description as always, we're going to be going to the Chicago one on the 14th, I think? 16th of March, and I'll be in the Toronto one on the 13th of April. So if any of you are at either of these events, be sure to come see me. Hopefully we can have a couple games or so. It should be pretty fun. So I quickly just wanted to go over what decks you'll be likely to see, what decks will be very good, what ones you probably shouldn't play, and just the general rules for these events for any of you who are going. So of course they'll be doing events in both Vanguard, Standard, and Premium. Standard events will be on the first day, and those are likely to be the ones that I'm going to be going to. I don't like Premium all too much, but Premium will be on the second day for those who are going. They also have Weiss Schwartz and Buddy Fight events, but I won't be at those either. Now beyond that, this Springfest, as always, is a team event. That means that you need 3 players on your team, and each of them have to be playing clans which are different from the other members of your team. So you can't just go in with 3 Great Natures and wreck shop. That being said, it would be pretty nice. You'll likely want to mix probably a Protect, a Force, and an Excel clan, as each of them have very powerful options. However, you might find that playing 2 Excel or 2 Force might be better for whoever's coming. Now, there are no real qualifications to participate in these events. All that really matters is that you have a deck of 50 cards, you write down the deck list, and you have 3 people who have different deck lists. There is no fee for signing up for these events, and the events will be best of 1 Swiss with 25-minute rounds. So if you're playing things like Angel Feathers or OTT, you might have a bit of a time crunch sometimes, so keep that in mind when you're choosing your deck. Of course, the 2 events that I'm going to won't be the only 2 which are taking place for the Bushiroad Springfest, and if you aren't able to go to those, there are several others which you might be able to reach. So the dates and locations are March 16 and 17 in Rosemont, Illinois, April 6th and 7th in Atlanta, Georgia, April 13 and 14 in Toronto, Canada, 13 and 14 of April again in Mexico City, Mexico, the 27th and 28th of April in Anaheim, California, the 4th and 5th of May in Richmond, British Columbia, the 25th and 26th of May in White Plains, New York, and finally June 15 and 16 in Houston, Texas. Now the metas will be very different in each of these events, as there's typically a box released each month, so what's happening in Rosemont will probably be very different from what happens in Toronto. That being said, if I am going to Toronto, then I'll be looking at the Atlanta, Georgia event because it's a pretty similar time frame. So try and keep an eye on other events to know what's going to be coming. Anyways, let's get on to the actual tier list that I've come up with. Yours might be a little bit different, and I would like to see what you guys think of different clans in the comment section down below. Let me know if I'm underestimating or overestimating some clans, because I've only had so much experience with them, and I could be pretty wrong. So this list is based on my own personal experience, what I've seen from people online, and events that I've seen online as well. So I'm going to be going from the bottom tier to tier 1 decks, and we're just going to go through that. So bottom tier for me is just decks that you don't want to really play. They're just at the best of times really inconsistent, and yeah, you can win with them, but it's going to be an uphill battle no matter what. And there's only 2 decks here, and that will be the Nova Grappler's Heroes deck and the GRANBLUE deck. They're both super weak right now. You can definitely get wins with the Nova Grappler one, a lot more easily than you can with GRANBLUE. However, overall it just doesn't hold up in the current meta, and it's not something that you should bring to these major events unless you want to get knocked out first round. Tier 4 is basically decks which have some support but aren't quite strong enough to keep up with the current meta. They can definitely win, they can definitely high roll, but in most cases that's what they are, they're high roll decks. So from weakest to strongest, we have the Artemis deck in Genesis. It does have the ability to share triggers. It does have, pretty good power in that. However, you just don't have the amount of support you need. The deck feels very clunky, and when you high roll it feels great, but overall a lot of the times you're left wanting things to just go a little bit better. Beyond that, we have the Nova Grappler Risers, or a TACHIKAZE deck, however you want to call it. This deck can pop off. Sometimes it just plows through you, you lose. But 90% of the time, if you're playing this deck, you're probably going to be losing. It rushes through its resources faster than anything else in the game, and it leaves you with nothing that you can really do. This is the definition of high risk, high reward. Basically, you win on turn 3 or 4, or you have nothing that you can do. And if you're not checking grade 3s, or you're not checking the things that you need to see, this deck just falls apart. So it is super fun to play, just probably not what you want to bring to a regional event. Just something quick to note here, this is the first round in Toronto I played against a Riser deck as Shadow Paladin, and I've never had an easier game in my life. Like, it was over so fast, and there have been several sets that have come out since then, meaning they're actually weaker than they were then. So keep that in mind, probably don't bring Nova Grapplers to this event. Next up we have Tachikaze. Tachikaze is a deck which, again, can go well, but even when it goes well, there's not a whole lot of oomph to it, right? There's a definite cap to how strong it is. It has some pretty good combo plays, but all the combos don't really finish the game. Like, there's no real end game in sight. The whole strategy with this deck is just a couple big pushes. You have some good draw advantage, but again, other decks do what this does, just better. If you want to play an aggro deck that's spread far apart and hits big numbers, just play Great Nature. There's no real reason that this deck needs to be the one that you're playing. Next up, we have Royal Paladin's Soul Saver Dragon deck. This deck sometimes destroys you. Every now and then you hit Soul Saver on turn 4 or 5, and you drop Palamedes, you drop the Bedivere combo, and you have a full field that works perfectly. Everything goes amazing, and you win the game because of it. And the other 70% of the time, you ride Palamedes, or you don't have the resources you need, or just a million things went wrong, and you're left with nothing that you can really go off. The deck is super strong when it works, as all of the other ones in this tier. However, the consistency of them really forces the deck to be pushed down a little bit. Again, a super powerful deck is the Spike Brother deck, when it works. So the big problem with this deck is that it has one grade 3 that you want to be riding, and a lot of the decks, and the deck will fall apart if you have to ride Juggernaut Maxim or whatever else. If you're not getting the right grade 3, you lose. And that's bad. That being said, when it goes off, you're swinging for these massive numbers that are super hard to keep up with. You can recycle triggers, you can do all these great things, but that's it. There's a definite cap to how big you can push, and you're going to find that a lot of the time, in my experience anyways, the decks that are better than others tend to be the ones that don't just hit big numbers, they hit big numbers and do something that pushes their own agenda. And that's the important factor that Spike Brothers is missing. It just doesn't have that big finish other than, I'm swinging for big numbers, your move. And then we have the final clan in the tier 4, and that is Navel Gazer Aqua Force. Aqua Force can be kind of split into 3 decks: Navel Gazer, Maelstrom, and the Hybrid. So I definitely think that the Hybrid is by far the strongest of the 3, and I'm kind of putting both Navel Gazer and Maelstrom together in this spot, which sounds super awkward, but basically on their own, both decks kind of fall flat of what they want to do. They just don't really have that full range of motion that you need to see. However, when they're put together, they're a bit more competent. The deck, again, can super high roll, but it just comes down to a trigger on the defensive and the deck falls apart. And moving on to tier 3, speaking of the Hybrid deck, that's going to be my bottom pick for that tier. Again, same kind of comments as the last one. If you hit a defensive, you fall apart. But the riding the wrong Vanguard is much less important here. The high roll is a bit more likely because there's more options that go the right way, and just things tend to work out a little bit better. But again, just shut down by big numbers. Again, you're just shut down by things like force and defensive triggers, and so much can go wrong that it's just not a consistent deck. Moving on to the next one in tier 3, we have No Life King Dark Irregular. This deck is great. Sometimes. The requirement of building up 13 in soul usually goes by pretty quick. The deck can get there pretty regularly. However, not getting there shuts the deck down. Sometimes you just don't draw the cards that allow you to soul charge effectively, and you lose. That's how the deck works. It has a super powerful combo, No Life King into Demon Eater, or No Life King into another No Life King. Those can win you the game. But again, it's a lot of setup a lot of the time, and if you don't have time to do that, you just lose. Like, a lot of the more powerful decks in this meta are things like Great Nature, NECTAR, Alfred, Detonics, stuff like that. And they're just not things that this deck has enough time to deal with. So because of that, I'm going to say that it just doesn't hold up where it needs to. Next up is Mandala Lord Murakumo. So this is a super fun deck. It's one of my favorite ones to play. This plays aggro like nothing else. Because you're playing things basically from the deck, you're saving up a lot of hand, and you can push really hard because of it. But if you're misriding, or you're drawing the wrong things which limits the resources in your deck, this deck can fall apart. The biggest push that this deck has is Musashi. Being able to force your opponent to drop 2 cards at a time is pretty big when you're swinging so many times. And all that results in a pretty powerful deck, but again, it just doesn't keep up with the current meta. Next up, we have Dayusha. This is such a fun deck. If you want 1 or 2 big attacks each turn that swing for seemingly a million with extra crits, this is the deck that you want to play. Sometimes you cheese people out. I've lost games from 2 damage because they pull a double crit, and you just lose. But a lot of the time, you're playing against things like Angel Feather, or Imperial Daughter, or Pentagonal, or Magatsu Storm. All of these decks are going to be pretty common, I think, and they all have Protect Gifts, which means that just swinging for a big number isn't enough, especially not just once or twice a turn. You need to be forcing multiple Protect Gifts a turn, or you're just not going to keep up, and that's not something that Dimension Police is able to do very effectively right. Next up in Tier 3 we have Gear Chronicles. This is a pretty fun deck. It works pretty well. The only issue is that they have 1 grade 3, which can be difficult to come across because there's only 4 total in the deck, and they have to be able to bind 19 grades worth of cards. Sometimes you could fly through this. I've had that as early as turn 4 or 5. However, a lot of the times you're pushing towards the end of the deck, and sometimes by the time you can actually pull this off, you only have 5 or 6 cards left in the deck and you can't even get the extra turn off effectively. Again, this is one of those high roll decks. When it works, your opponent's going to have a bitch of a time keeping up with you. But most of the time, either something's going to go wrong with your ride chain, or you're not going to be able to bind the right cards. It's just basically praying for most of this deck to go right. Next up is a clan which many of you probably don't see very often. It's not a very popular clan, but goddamn is it really effective when it's played right, and that's MEGACOLONY. This deck totally wasn't really on my radar because no one likes to play it. However, we had someone bring it to our locals, and I actually played against one in the last regionals as well. And every now and then the deck just antlions you and you lose, or your field is too small to hit them and that really sucks. There's just so many things this deck does really effectively, and if it had those 2 promos that they're waiting on, this deck is busted. It's so powerful. It doesn't, so it's still in Tier 3, but overall it's something that you should definitely watch out for, and definitely you shouldn't underestimate. The next Tier 3 deck is Magatsu Storm. This is really powerful. This is this weird mitigation between offensive and defensive, and I would like to think that it works, but sometimes it just doesn't. There's a lot that can go wrong playing this deck. It's another one of those clans that suffer from the 1 good grade 3 problem. That being said, when it goes off, 5-6 attacks in a turn is pretty good. But it can just fall short, and sometimes it's just not enough. You can stop Vanguard attacks, which is great, but against Force clans which are stacking things on their rear guards, that doesn't really matter. Against things like Great Nature, which is probably going to be the most common deck, that doesn't matter. There's just so much that can go wrong. This is an okay deck. You're starting to get into the... Basically, I would say everything from, like, Dayusha up is viable for these tournaments, by the way. So, like, if you want to bring Magatsu Storm, you're definitely okay to do so, but there's things above it which will make it to struggle. So, keep that in mind. The deck which I'm probably bringing to regionals will be Coco for this one at least. Coco's a weird card. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I've been playing around with the deck list, and it's really working for me. But I definitely think Pentagonal and Imperial are probably more fun. It's just that the way Coco works well with my playstyle, so that's what I'm going to be bringing. It's a super draw heavy deck, You get these great power turns with Zozo. Just everything really works well with it. There's some really powerful cards in the deck, and if you haven't built it or tested it out, I would recommend doing so. And if you haven't played against it, you're in for a treat. On to the tier 2 decks, we have things which you're likely to see. Things from here up will probably make up the majority of what you'll see in these big regional events, at least until the next set comes out. And starting things off is Pale Moon. Pale Moon is probably the weakest of these, or at least tied with the next one. However, it can just win. Like, it's super aggressive. Sometimes if they're going first and you've pushed them a little bit, if they have 3 or 4 counterblast and they've soul charged the right cards, the game's over. Like, I've attacked 14 times in my 3rd turn. It's nuts. Like, you can't guard against it unless you get a defensive trigger, which admittedly will kind of screw things up, but with Golden Beast Tamer's ability, you're mitigating that a little bit, which is really nice. The deck is super fun to play. It's always a fan favorite clan, and I don't think I've ever gone to a regionals that Pale Moon hasn't been played in, no matter how bad the deck has been. So always be aware that that deck exists. With things like Angel Feather and Imperial Daughter being very popular, it's gonna be there. Like, it's just a great counter to those decks specifically, and yeah, keep an eye out for it. The next deck is something I was considering putting in tier 3. I haven't had too much experience with it, but I know those who have been playing it really, really like it, and that is the Kujikiri Kongo Nubatama deck. So this is the discard variant. Things can go super, super right for you. In some situations, you can make your opponent discard up to 14 cards in a turn, which lets you win. I hear that's pretty good. But overall, this deck can definitely go wrong. There's only a couple cards which fit the archetype in it. It's sort of like a good Artemis build in that way. But yeah, this deck works pretty well against a lot of the big clans. The big issue with it is that it can be pressured down. The big play for the deck, it requires you to have 2 Protect Gifts in hand, so if you're constantly hammering down on an opponent playing the Kujikiri Kongo deck, they're likely to not be able to do that, so that's super helpful in itself. The whole thing is just super fun. I doubt that it's going to be the big player of the tournament, however, it could be there. I know a lot of people enjoy playing it. From here up, we have probably the most popular clans that you're going to see. Like, these will be everywhere. I wouldn't doubt if you played the entire tournament, even made it to top 8, and only saw these decks. So get ready for these ones specifically. First off, we have Genesis Himiko build. If you like 3 free crits or 3 free draws, this is a great deck. Basically, if your opponent doesn't have a perfect guard on turn 3, you can just go Himiko, stack all of them to Vanguard, hit him in the face for 4 damage. Sometimes that wins the game. They can just cheese you out like that. That being said, sometimes they don't have the resources, sometimes they do have a perfect guard to defend against it, and the deck falls flat. The big problem with this deck is, of course, just like many others, there's only one real grade 3 in the deck, and it falls flat no matter what else you ride. It feels awful to ride the other 2 cards, and you just kind of lose the game. So be wary of that. Himiko is a super powerful card when it goes off. It goes off a lot of the time, to be fair, but yeah, there's a definite weakness in that. Speaking of clans with a definite weakness, we have Shadow Paladins. This is the clan and deck, basically, that I got top 8 with in Toronto. It's super good, but there is the definite weakness that Protect Gifts kind of screw it over. I honestly cannot see a world where Shadow Paladins beats Angel Feathers. Just not happening. I mean, they heal, you can give them a damage, but there's only so many grade 3s that you can have in Soul. You retiring their field just isn't that big a deal. There's just this giant drop-off in power that has come out since that deck was released. It's still fine. A lot of decks will lose to it because you have board control, you have big numbers, you have just a lot of resources and management of all those different things. However, it just doesn't hold up a lot of the time. So, I love the deck, but I don't think it's going to be tier 1 in any sense of the word. Next up, we have KAGERO. This can be either the Waterfall or the Transcendence builds. Waterfall just wins games on its own. That's all there is to it. Both decks run Waterfall, and 90% of the time you're just going to keep riding until you've killed the opponent. A pretty good strategy for Kagero, if you're playing it, is don't use Waterfall the first time you ride him, try using it the second time. The extra 10k does go a long way, and forces more cards from your opponent's hand. That being said, if they're already at 4 damage and you're pushing them basically to the limits as it is, yeah, use it right away. It's super situational, but holding on to it a little bit extra makes that Soul Blast do a lot more. If you're not in danger, maybe you can wait an extra turn. Kagero has great field control, has a guard restricting critical, which is on a force plan for no reason, and if all else fails, they can pop into Transcendence, Soul Blast 1, nuke your opponent's field, and if they have the right rear guards, every unit can get up to 25k against Force or Protect clans, let alone if they're playing against an Excel clan, so bear that in mind. Next up, we have the reason I'm not bringing Kagero, and that is NECTAR. Retiring your opponent's board feels like garbage if they just keep refilling it with tokens. You don't ever want to counterblast 1 to kill a token. That feels so bad. NECTAR is essentially the king of resource management. They don't need to play just about anything from their hand to have a full field, and the field gets massive after they do so. So it's a scary deck. It has force markers to give to those tokens, so even if you don't kill them, they swing for a bunch anyways. It's just really good. It's a powerful deck, and you should definitely watch out for it. Next up, we have Pentagonal Magus. This is another OTT deck, and I don't like it that much, but I know it can be pretty good. 5 drive checks, as many of you know, giving 15,000 power on each trigger, and depending on your rear guards, giving an extra 5k to each, so that's pretty good. But the deck kind of decks itself out in a lot of cases in my experience. It does have this just straightforward linear game plan, and it's not exciting to play to me, and beyond that, discarding 3 or 5 can feel really bad. Like a lot of the time you're just basically praying for the resources to guard your opponent or to make up a field next turn. So like the deck is sometimes fun, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel great to play a lot of the time. Next up, we have 2 clans which are in this weird in-between for Tier 1 and Tier 2. I'm going to start off with Detonix Drill Dragon Narukami. Super powerful deck. It is amazing. You can bind things, you have a standing vanguard, you have rear guards that come back to the field from the drop after you bind things. There's just so much that this deck has to offer. It's great for resources, it's great for pressure, it's great for control, it's an Excel clan, so you have a lot of aggro built into it. Everything works really well here. Ironically enough, it does struggle against the Artemis deck, which was one of the first decks we wrote off here, because you can't target the rear guards. So that's really funny, but overall the deck's just super powerful. It is seemingly impossible to deal with sometimes. It's so frustrating, and it's just super effective. I would consider bringing this on to the tournament. It's a great deck if you want another aggro option after Great Nature. And the next one that's sort of between the Tier 1 and 2 option is Ezel. So this is a Gold Paladin deck. Super fun. The biggest strength that this deck has is its superior riding. So your opponent's sometimes on grade 1 and you're on a second grade 3, because you can go like Bowmane, call Gareth, use Incandescent Ezel, and then counterblast 1 to ride Raven Ezel. If you have another counterblast available, you can give your Vanguard plus 15 and a crit, and your opponent can't use perfect guards. So if you've been aggressive as early as you can, like you just win games sometimes off that, that seems pretty okay. It's just a super effective deck. You have a lot of resources which allow you to superior ride. There are 2 separate superior ride chains in the deck. The deck just works in a lot of ways. It has a guard restrict, it has a wide spreading board, a lot of aggro, superior riding. Everything works super well. So this is definitely something to watch out for, and definitely something to consider playing. On to Alfred. So this is a super strong deck. The ability to get a 15 crit to recycle and buff your blaster blades, both offensively and defensively. On a Force Clan, with Exculpate as a secondary option to have a standing Vanguard that wipes your opponent's board. This is great. It nukes things like Great Nature and Detonics and Zenbaku, which is just incredibly effective, especially if Zenbaku has one of the arresters on the field and you can just kill everything. So that's something to consider. So it has great finishers, a lot of power on Vanguard and Rearguard, extra crits through Blaster Blade and Majesty Blaster. Just so many things that this deck offers that are just fantastic. Back to a old tier 1 deck, we have Imperial Daughter. This deck is slightly stronger than it used to be because of the recent support, but it's all the same stuff. It still has Deer, it still has Imperial Daughter, still has Amaterasu and Tom, and it's still going to kill you in the same ways it did before. It's a Protect clan, so it's super hard to deal with, and it has a lot of draw, so it basically is impossible to stop. So it can basically be impossible to stop depending on the situation. So this is definitely something that you need to look out for. If you see it, just rush it down. Do not give them time to set things up. Kill them as fast as possible, because otherwise they're going to do the same to you. Next up we have our number 3 deck, and that is Zanbaku. This is the ride and standing lock for your opponent's Vanguard. Super powerful when it goes off anyways. Misriding can be a big issue, however, your opponent's constantly in fear that you're going to have 3 counterblasts because you can just end their game, basically. Forcing them to not stand or ride makes it so that they're losing out on 2 cards, and they lose out on an attack. It's a lot for them to deal with, especially against an Excel clan which is spreading wide and basically forcing them against the wall. Something to consider with this deck is that the longer that you wait, the more Excel markers you have down, the stronger your lock is because it's harder for them to deal with. There's more attacks coming in, they're already being pushed to their very limit through their first turn, and the second turn is going to be even more difficult for them. Playing against this clan, if you're using OTT, use things like Rectangle Magus and Tetramagus, stack triggers on top of your deck for the defensive turn. That can go a long way. There's not much else I can really tell you, just be careful about giving them 3 damage. Moving on to the second strongest deck in my opinion, we have Angel Feathers. Now I've seen some real idiots run this deck and be almost impossible to kill. There's innate healing in things like Metatron, there's protect gifts out the fucking ass, there's a million things which are just so difficult to deal with. It's basically an unkillable clan. And then on top of that they have Mobile Hospital, which gives them a guard restricting crit on rearguard. Why? Like, it's just stupid. You can essentially go Mobile Hospital on the left and right while you're on grade 3, ride 3 or 4 grade 3s from your damage zone all in one turn, use both of them, and swing for a ton on your Vanguard as well. Who thought of that? Why is that okay? It's very powerful and you should probably consider taking it. It's very difficult to deal with, and just be careful about it. The best thing you can do is rush them down, but again that gives them options to play and swap things from their damage zone, so who knows if that actually helps. Get double crits. That's, you know, the real best thing you can do against this clan, because otherwise they're just gonna live and live and live because that's what they do. So good luck. And the best clan, which you've probably noticed I've compared just about everything to this explanation, has been Great Nature. The Leopold build with Hamsuke combined with Bison, all 3 of them, is just stupid. Being able to go Hamsuke on turn 3 and get 2 extra Excel circles is insane, let alone playing things from deck, which are now 22k attackers on those circles. Also pretty good. Following that, you can Leopold if they manage to kill those, calling 4 cards to the field sometimes. That's pretty nutty. He can get a crit and power, also super strong. You have Binoculus, which can get you draws or kill opponents' rearguards and buff your field. You have Monoculus, which gives you guard restrict. The deck does everything. Not to mention the fucking pandas. Swinging for 27 on an Excel circle? What do you do against that? There's just so much pressure that this deck offers, it's unbelievably difficult to deal with. It's super powerful, there's so much resource management. Even if they mill something and they need it, they can just add it back to their hand with Tank Mouse. The deck has everything that they could possibly want, and it's so powerful. So probably you should bring this clan. Oh man. That took forever, but that is all of the current standard decks put into a tier list, and a brief explanation of why for each. If you disagree with my list, or you think things should be higher or lower, let me know in the comment section down below. As far as my team for this first event anyways in Chicago, I'm going to be looking at probably an Alfred deck, a Ezel deck, and a Coco deck. We might see about putting on a Teutonics in there. Unfortunately, we can't get a Great Nature. With all that being said though, let me know if you guys are going to be going to the Chicago event or the Toronto one. I'd love to see you guys there. Join my Discord in the description down below. It is a great way to stay in contact with me and see what's coming up with the channel, talk about different deck recipes, help people get into the game a little bit, which is great. I'm going to start to be looking to get some practice games on Card Fight area there as well, so if you want to help me practice, please. And yeah, well, that's super appreciated. I want to give a big thank you to Decimus, AQUA, and DigitalDrew92 for supporting the channel on Patreon. They're helping me so much, especially on this trip, so I can actually afford to go and make some content on it. Really appreciate that. If you want to support the channel, please check out that link in the description down below. It means literally the world to me. And with all that being said, I will try and get some more content out coming very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Miracle Trigger, and I will see you in the next video.